You're listening to The Night Shift with Michael Darcy on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Welcome into The Night Shift on Sports Radio 810 WHB. I'm your host, Michael Darcy, joined in studio by my guys, Kyle Collier and producer Caden Sproul. We've got you covered for the next hour, a jam-packed show, all things Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to talk about the NFL coaching carousel, who is going to be the Chiefs' next offensive coordinator, what maybe their draft strategy should be, what that's going to look like. It's a very different offseason for media in Kansas City, Chiefs fans in general, because this time last year, the Chiefs were getting ready to play in the divisional round against the Texans, and now they're sitting on their couch, or they're in Cancun, watching the playoffs take place. And so it should be very interesting to see what ends up happening from a coaching perspective, or the moves the Chiefs are going to make to shake things up. A lot to discuss. But fellas, how are we doing on this beautiful evening?
You're right about one thing, Darcy. It's odd talking offseason in January, especially here in Kansas City. It's been, 8 years since we had to do that, right?
Yeah. This is going to be the first AFC championship since 2018 the Chiefs are not in.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be different for media, but it's also going to be different for that front office. They got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I just want to address everybody saying that the Chiefs aren't missing the playoffs. Well, first of all, the Chiefs haven't played in the wild card round very much in
That's a good point.
in the
That's
playoffs
true.
period. So I don't think you can really say if you miss it or tell if you miss them or not until the conference championship round and the divisional round. So it is weird though. It's going to be a long offseason. We haven't had really this much time to cover any of the offseason stuff in a while. So yeah, it's going to be different.
When it's so interesting because even when the Chiefs have gotten eliminated from the playoffs, you knew that the same cast was going to come back next season, and they're probably going to get back to the AFC Championship game and go to another Super Bowl and have a chance to win it. And so this is the first time in a long time where what you have done doesn't matter. What you did in 2025 did not work. You need to find out and address how to improve on a 6-11 season and get back to the playoffs. And that's going to start with revamping the offensive coaching staff. We talked about it on the show last week that Matt Nagy is expected to interview for the Titans head coaching job, along with a lot of other.
I think he's going to meet with the Giants as well.
I think I saw some in the Raiders also looked into it. He's going to interview with a ton of different franchises. But I think the main takeaway from that is whether he gets a head coaching job or not, he's interested in becoming an offensive coordinator, a play caller somewhere else. So I think it's pretty safe to assume that Matt Nagy is not going to be back in Kansas City in 2026. His contract's expired. I think the Chiefs are going to move on. Now, who are they going to move on to? And I think that's a very broad question. But what are your initial thoughts on this vacant offensive coordinator position? And give me your best case scenario and your worst case scenario.
Oh, boy. Okay. Best case scenario, it's pretty simple for me. You go get somebody new, somebody Andy is not familiar with. And I think every OC candidate that gets interviewed in Kansas City is going to realize that they don't have full control. It is Andy's the guy calling the plays, right? He has final decision on all that. So I'm glad you brought that up about Matt Nagy because that's what he wants. He wants some creative control over the offense, and he's not going to get that here. So best case scenario, it's somebody new. Andy somewhat relinquishes a little bit of that control and just allows outside blood and outside voice to be in that locker room. And because frankly, over the last 3 years, the offense has gotten stale and predictable, and Andy needs to evolve the play calling. We can talk about personnel and all that, but new blood is best case scenario. I think worst case scenario, I'll just say it, EB.
That's the correct answer.
Yeah.
That's the correct answer. I'm going to save my Eric Bieniemy rant for a minute, but, Caden, answer the question. Best case scenario, worst case scenario?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the similar path that Kyle is. I think anything that from outside the organization is fine. Just a young offensive mind. I would prefer somebody young, just so that there's new ideas, maybe from a college scheme, or you never know. Guys get their schemes from all over the place. You never know where it comes from. So, maybe just a younger guy that can bring some new blood, like you said, some new blood to this offense, some new energy, maybe bring some motivation to these guys. I don't know if Nagy's just not connecting with these guys or what. And then, like you said, just if somebody was promoted within, I wouldn't say EB specifically, but just anybody within this organization, if anybody was promoted, I think, as you talked about, Kyle, this is just going to be Andy's offense once again. It's not really going to be a whole lot of change. And me and Michael talked about it before the show a little bit. It's going to come down to how much Andy Reid is willing to give up and how much he is willing to allow the guys around him to really, have a voice and have an input on this offense. So, I'd say if somebody was promoted within this Chiefs organization, I'd say that's worst case scenario.
Yeah, it'd just be more of the same.
And historically, that is what Andy Reid has done. He doesn't go outside the organization and find an offensive coordinator. Now, he'll pull from, his buddies around the league, and, Matt Nagy, who failed in Chicago, came back and worked his way kind of back up to being the OC once Eric Bieniemy left. We saw it with Doug Peterson. We saw it with Eric Bieniemy, who started as a running backs coach. This is just how he operates. To answer the question, I'm just going to start with the worst. Eric Bieniemy would be the worst hire for offensive coordinator for a variety of reasons. And that is not a popular take among Chiefs fans. And the biggest qualm that I have with it is that the number one reason that Chiefs fans give you for why they want Eric Bieniemy back on this team coaching the offense is that he held guys accountable. I don't know how to say this nicely. There's more to being an offensive coordinator than holding players accountable. And if you just look at his resume, coaching offenses once he left Kansas City, it is bad. I mean, he went to be the Commanders' offensive coordinator in 2023. He was so bad, he got fired after 1 year. I told Caden before the show, I was looking at ProFootballHistory.com, and they have a little by note on Eric Bieniemy and his tenure as the offensive coordinator for the Commanders. He was 4-13, making him the second least successful offensive coordinator in Washington Commanders history.
Oh, jeez.
Then he went to college.
Yep.
Was the assistant head coach and the offensive coordinator at UCLA. Fired after 1 year. And now he's coaching running backs for the Bears, and I think that if there's ever a role for Eric Bieniemy coaching, it is coaching running backs. He was one. It makes sense. He was the running backs coach here with, Jamal Charles was here. They also got the most out of Damian Williams. Mm-hmm. But coaching the offense, it is very clear that when he has been asked to lead a group of men or control the offense, call the plays, it has not been good whatsoever. And I just think if you look at the resume and you stop getting in your feels over the 4-year stretch where, the Chiefs won a lot of championships, they also had prime Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill.
Right.
So I think that's absolute worst case scenario. And I'd even be okay with hiring from within than going back to Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah. And I'm not 100% opposed to having Eric Bieniemy back. It's just not his OC, like you described. His role as running backs coach. And I do think EB being back here would bring some energy to that locker room. And yes, accountability, discipline was clearly a problem on the field for the 2025 Chiefs, and so far off the field. We'll see. But I think if EB comes back, he brings a little bit of that dog mentality to the locker room, but he's got his role. I think it is as running backs coach, and I think it's clear that the NFL kind of told him what type of coach you are. You're not a head coach. You're not an OC anymore. Fine. We can bring EB back as the running backs guy, right? Especially if Connor Embry was the first guy to fall on the sword this offseason. He should not be the only one, right? There should be more coming. So if you still have a wide receiver coaching your running backs, like I believe they currently still do, Todd
Pinkston.
Yep, that's who it is. Changes need to happen along there. Get guys who can excel in their roles, and I think EB could excel like that. But like Caden brought up, I don't want more of the same. If Joe Blameyer ends up being promoted,
that's my pick.
I'm not going to have any. There's no excitement in that pick, right? If you promote from within, you're basically telling your fan base, "Yep, we're running it back," and nobody's going to be happy about that.
Well, a quick side note on Eric Bieniemy. The NFL told you exactly what they thought he was. Yeah. There's a reason why he never got a head coaching job. And whether it's he was a terrible interviewer or they just talked to him in meetings and were like, okay, clearly this guy cannot coordinate an offense the way that we want it done. He finally got that shot, and again, it didn't work out. And I do think the Chiefs are going to promote from within. I think it's Joe Blameyer's job. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't really make you excited. I think some of the names that I wanted to talk about in this segment, you got Nate Shieldhouse, the local Rockhurst kid who is
a popular one,
an absolute whiz, an offensive mastermind who is getting head coaching interviews with the Steelers, the Browns, literally every head coaching vacancy, he's interviewing for that. Don't think that's going to happen. I'm going to throw out these other two names, Cliff Kingsbury and Mike McDaniel. What are kind of the big things that jump out to you about those two guys?
They're different. They're different, and they have had a ton of success running offenses. Cliff Kingsbury, obviously the familiarity with Patrick Mahomes being your quarterback and Kingsbury being his college coach. There's some familiarity there, but it's been a good long while since those two have worked together. Mike McDaniel, I think, would be my number one pick.
It's the dream.
It's just the problem is I have no reason to believe that Andy Reid is going to hire somebody to run the offense. It's his offense. I just hope he's willing to accept more ideas because, I mean, especially down the stretch, that offense was anemic for the Chiefs. It was predictable. That Chargers game, I was scared one of the receivers was going to leave in an ambulance.
Yeah, I think Mike's probably the dream pick as well, especially if he's able to bring that, that zone run scheme that he's adopted from Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan. It's been great, and everywhere it's been adopted. The Rams have had a lot of success with it. The 49ers have as well. The Dolphins ran the ball really good, even with Devon Achane, even though he's more of a receiving back. They still ran the ball very well. So yeah, I think that would, but I think the thing that the Chiefs fans have to really accept and really think about is what makes this job more intriguing than any of the other jobs, and especially for guys like Mike McDaniel and Shieldhouse that, like you said, that are getting head coaching interviews. Why would you want to take a step down, and come work under Andy and not really know what, how much of a voice you're going to have in this offense? So I think you have to really think about that when you're talking about candidates.
Yeah.
And that is why I wanted to bring this up, because you just hit it spot on. I don't think that Nate Shieldhouse would ever take the offensive coordinator job because he is getting head coaching offers. I don't think that Mike McDaniel is going to come play second fiddle to Andy Reid. We're seeing that he's getting jobs, or I guess interviews with the Lions to be their offensive coordinator. He's interviewing with the Bucs in a couple days. There is no way that he is going to come here and not call the offense. And looking at Cliff Kingsbury, maybe this is a problem with me, and I don't really love any of these candidates that much because I just know who, at the end of the day, calls the offense and who controls it and runs it. Cliff Kingsbury has made more money in his life riding the coattails of recruiting Patrick Mahomes than any person I have ever seen in my life. He couldn't win with Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech. He couldn't win as the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. He didn't win with the Commanders. He has made more money just because he gave an invitation, a scholarship offer to Patrick Mahomes than, honestly, he probably should have.
Yeah, I mean, I will give him a lot of credit. He was good in Washington. He had Jaden Daniels in that offense,
year,
in that offense running well. And in the second year, I think Jaden Daniels' health just kind of screwed them up a little bit. And frankly, the Commanders, I think, were just a year early on their run to the NFC Championship game. I think they were a little bit, probably, a year or two away, right? So they got there a little bit prematurely, is what I'm saying. But yeah, I feel like with Shieldhouse and with Kingsbury, people are just, lobbing those guys up as candidates to come here simply because of the familiarity. Like if Shieldhouse's name was Joe Smith and he was from, I don't know, San Francisco originally, right? Would he be a candidate? I tend to think he would be, just because, like you mentioned, he's getting interview requests and stuff like that. Kingsbury, I think it would be a little bit more exciting, but again, it's just we keep going back to it. Can Andy Reid evolve at 67 years old? I have no reason to believe that. And, I mean, for God's sake, he could bring you, me, or Caden in to be the OC. As long as the running game becomes more important, I don't think people realize just how much that is going to open things up for the offense. The Chiefs were constantly facing light boxes. So that's not good for your passing game. With a better running game, things will open up.
Well, and that brings up a great point, because Cliff Kingsbury, as the offensive coordinator in Washington, ran more RPOs than Andy Reid.
Ooh.
And listen, if you're calling an RPO to Patrick Mahomes, you know he's going to pass. It's just a PO. There's no run in the run-pass option. I like the idea on paper of Cliff Kingsbury because of the familiarity with Patrick Mahomes, but I don't like pairing someone that loves to run RPOs with someone that can't stop running RPOs.
Right. And in Washington, he had Daniels and Mariota, two mobile quarterbacks, right? I would like to see less of Patrick Mahomes being a mobile quarterback, more presence in the pocket, more carving up defenses from the pocket. That kind of throws up a yellow flag for me.
Yeah, I think it's worrisome so far, too, that we haven't really heard any reputable sources say, link any coordinators to the Chiefs. We haven't really seen any reports about that. We've seen that with almost any other team that's looking for one right now, and that may change after, Matt Nagy gets his situation figured out. We may see the dominoes fall, after that, but I think usually by now you've at least heard a little bit of, chatter about where they may be looking at, and it triggers the idea that they could be, searching within.
Right.
Not hearing anything is not good news.
Right.
I think if you just look at the history of the Chiefs offensive coordinators, they promote from within. And Joe Blameyer, the current passing game coordinator, whether you like it or not, is probably going to be a finalist for that job. And that's why when Andy Reid kind of talked towards the end of the season about the mistakes that he as a coaching staff and the players made, he brought up execution a lot. And yes, they didn't execute. But I think the bigger issue is that they did not adapt schematically to the way the NFL is trending. And I'll say this. Just looking around the NFL, Mike Tomlin, no longer with the Steelers. Harbaugh, no longer with the Ravens. You've got long-tenured head coaches leaving their franchise that they've been for a decade. I mean, John Harbaugh was there for, 18 years?
Yeah, 19 seasons, yep.
Pete Carroll is top 5 in wins among active coaches, and he got fired. So
there is no such thing as a safe job in the NFL, and I don't think Andy Reid's going anywhere unless he wants to. But I think the bigger point is that you're seeing some of these franchises far less successful over the past 7 years in the Chiefs. So I want to make that clear. But you're seeing them make those tough decisions of moving on.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they're going to move on from Andy Reid, but they do need to move on from guys around Andy Reid. And at a certain point, you look at the Steelers and the Ravens and said, are you going to change this about your coaching staff? They said no, and they're no longer there.
Yeah, the Steelers are the perfect example. They've been stagnant for it feels like a decade now. Their last Super Bowl was, boy, I should know this.
2010,
something like
was
that.
Against the Cardinals in 2010.
I think that's what it was. But it's just like ever since then, they just kind of been a team that was a little bit better than 500
They're
every
in
year.
Football purgatory.
Yeah, exactly. And they finally, I know Tomlin technically stepped down, but finally, I think a change was needed. Baltimore obviously realized the same thing. Can they realize it here in Kansas City in that front office? And back to Caden's point, to be fair to Pete Carroll, I think the Lord himself would have got fired with that, with that Raiders roster.
Yeah. They didn't do him any justice this year, I think. But I'm just going against the point that it can happen. Don't take it out of the equation completely that Andy Reid could be gone.
Well, and the game kind of passed Pete Carroll by. I think if you just watch what happened in Vegas and really what happened back in Seattle when he was still there, there was a lot of refusal to change or play the young guys. And that was a huge thing in Vegas. Like they had a bunch of draft picks that weren't playing over the experienced veterans, which you want to draw a correlation to Kansas City? Well, that's what we saw for the last 4 or 5 weeks of this season when the Chiefs were already eliminated. Even when it was happening at the time, any other coach not named Andy Reid that does not play your rookies and draft picks when you're mathematically eliminated from playoff contention, that's a fireable offense because you can't. We kept talking about what do you have in Brashard Smith? What do you have in Jeffrey Bossa? What do you got in Jalen Royals? We know nothing about any of those guys.
Yeah, let's spend a 4th rounder on Jalen Royals and give him 2 targets.
Yeah,
in that season. And Brashard Smith on that touchdown run in the final game, broke more tackles than I think any Chiefs running back has in the last 3 years.
But he just doesn't know the system, so he couldn't get there.
I guess and if that's the problem, then I question your scouting process, your interview process, all of that. I mean, this is a KC offense. They had 3 rushes over 20 yards, and then Rashard Smith finally makes some moves in like the final week. Where's this been all season? So, yeah, evolution needs to happen. Changes need to be made, and you got to evaluate your personnel better. Use guys in the roles that are good for them, right? Like Xavier Worthy. I feel like his route tree this year was just so bland, so stale, and like they would never send him over, crossing routes over the middle, stuff like that. It felt like the coaching staff was maybe, we've talked about this a lot in the past, fatigued, right? That can catch up to you after 7-8 years of dominance and going to the Super Bowl damn near every year.
I wanted to bring this up, and I purposefully did not tell you guys this before the show. I was doing a little bit of research, and this might already be common knowledge, but I'm sure the listeners don't know this. What do Matt Nagy, Brett Veach, and Joe Blameyer all have in common?
They all play football at the same place?
They all played football at the University of Delaware. And the funny thing is that Matt Nagy and Brett Veach were on the same team at the same time.
Yeah.
And Joe Blameyer was there like a year later. So it's funny, Andy Reid always loves his BYU guys or his Rutgers guys, or just historically he has a trend for liking players from a certain college. The Chiefs have run I don't really even know the right way to say it. The Chiefs have run a coaching carousel of buddies. It is, this guy went to Delaware. Let's bring him in. Let's bring this guy in because Connor Embry and
I worked connection. This guy used to work with me in Philly. Stuff like that.
Yeah, or this guy played for me in Philly, and we want to bring him in because I saw what he could do, and I want him on my staff. Not necessarily because he knows what he's doing, but more because of that connection and that
familiarity.
Happens, yeah, and that happens in the world all the time. I don't want to make it seem like it doesn't, but I think, especially in this pivotal offseason where changes need to happen, and you look inward and look at how guys got to certain roles and where that connection was formed, that's great. That's fine. It worked for a long time. It didn't work in 2025. It's got to change.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, Connor Embry cannot be the first guy to fall on the sword. Changes are needed. New voices are needed. Creativity needs to be produced out of the offensive game plan room. Because 2025 was brutal to watch.
Yeah, I can't take what I watched last season anymore. It was a very rough watch, and I want to see a lot of improvement in the run game. Like you said, we only had how many rushes over 20 yards?
3.
Yeah, I mean, you can't win when you don't have explosive runs, and we've seen that in the playoffs. Woody Marks, a young rookie 4th rounder, he was explosive for the Texans the other night and helped them get a win. James Cook, we know he's been a great running back all year. So
I think
Cook,
another 4th rounder, I believe.
Yeah. So
Cook was a 2nd rounder.
Did you
know that James Cook was drafted right after Brian Cook, and also Brian Cook was drafted before James Cook and Nick Bonito.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So I think that is the biggest improvement. Somebody that can come in and establish this run game and help take some weight off of Pat, not put all the weight on his shoulders.
Right. Yeah. And we started this conversation just talking offensive coaching staff, but personnel cannot be ruled out either.
Oh, no.
I think there's work to be done in the receiving room and clearly the running back room. I think just even a slight upgrade over Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt is going to do wonders for the offense.
I think it's going to be more than just this offseason too. I don't think it's just a one offseason fix, and maybe 2. So I'm sure we'll talk about that later on.
I was going to say, I'll tell you what, the Chiefs have a lot of things they need to correct this offseason and change on the coaching staff, personnel-wise, and like Caden alluded to, I don't know if this is a quick fix. And I want to talk more about this situation, and we'll do it on the other side of the break. You guys are listening to The Night Shift on Sports Radio 810 WHB.